All right, the moderator has arrived. I will give the floor to Jacques. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, Marco, once again. I hope you had a good night's rest after yesterday's discussion, where we were really amply discussing your excellent proposals and just adding here and there some touch of paint. And well, here we're back for the next focal points. So I think without further ado, I just leave the floor to you, Marco. After having said hello to everybody else, you know that maybe not yet the full drill. The idea is that we consolidate the single points from the various sessions into just a short set of pointed messages which have been drafted so far. So I leave the floor to our colleague in Geneva, I understand.
Thank you very much. As you rightly said, the idea about this moment is to find a minimum common denominator about the text, the content of these messages that my colleagues have prepared by looking at the summaries and the reports from today's sessions. We can directly jump to the first message. Today we will have 4 messages. Part of the sessions were extremely technical, so some of these messages are reflecting that, but let's look at the first one. I will read it out slowly and then see if there are any objections, either from the people in situ or online. The interconnected nature of the internet and the need for resilience favors a multi-stakeholder approach when discussing the problems of the internet. However, the current geopolitical tensions may challenge multi-stakeholderism. There is a need to resist this tendency and to have a fresh look on the multi-stakeholder approach, which may come from the youth voices that are still unrepresented in the internet governance debates. Are there any comments? I see that Klaus has switched on his microphone. Is it because it's a request for floor?
Yeah,
yes.
I have a slight problem with the fact that we don't question multi-stakeholderism itself. And I think we should at least mention the limitations, or that multi-stakeholderism isn't the last solution. And I think it was very clear also in the presentation that it's basically the current state of art, but that's not the end point. And there needs to be change, and there needs to be things. My problem is that we don't do multi-stakeholderism a good service by not at least questioning how can it be improved and how can it be done better, because there is something multi-stakeholderism, as people also in the event said, look, has a long history. It basically came in to our times again, and we need to show somehow that it needs to progress, that it has limits. That's the only comment I'd like to make.
Well pointed out. I think because I had a brief discussion with my colleagues, they told me about these issues that came up also in the sessions. The way they wrote the message is, that's why they put fresh look on multi-stakeholder approach. But if it's too diplomatic, if it's too indirect, we can reformulate along and make this more explicit. If also other participants agree.
I would make a point to, if you can manage not to make multi-stakeholderism negative, but to say something positive. There is something positive we have which we can make better.
Okay.
Or develop into something new. And I think that's what came also out of the youth messages. That was an important part of the youth message, was there is something new. We have something new. There is something we can we can new bring in, and you old farts, shut up. So, and I think that's part of my comment in that sense.
Okay, I understood. I will then add maybe a few, 2, 3, 4 words around fresh look on multi-stakeholder approach, because already this word fresh points exactly at what you said. So it is going in that direction. I will make it more explicit, and if other people who are present today agree.
Yeah, this is Lori.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind, I should have raised my hand. I apologize, Marco.
No problem.
Good hand. Yeah, I agree with Klaus. I think there's probably room here for a little more questioning of, is the multi-stakeholder model, as we refer to it, the right multi-stakeholder model? Like, is there one meaning even for multi-stakeholder? I think that also kind of came out in the discussions as well. There's multi-stakeholder as we see it now, and then what it could be. And the other thing, from a grammatical viewpoint, I might rephrase the first question a little bit and just say the internet connected nature of the internet and the need for resilience favors a multi-stakeholder approach I would say when identifying the problems and discussing the solutions, because it's not just about discussing problems, it's about identifying solutions. And I'd like to see that, become part of that message, because that's only half the equation.
Well noted. Excellent.
Yeah. You're right. And my other comment is, I don't know if I would say the current geopolitical tensions. I might just say geopolitical tensions. There's always been geopolitical tensions. What you might say is, the current escalation of geopolitical tensions or something like that. But I wouldn't just say the current. I would either just say, however, geopolitical tensions may challenge, or however, the current escalation in geopolitical tensions. I think the formulation right now is not as precise as it could be.
Very, very well pointed out. So I will remove current. I will also add next to this, however, geopolitical tension or de-escalation of current geopolitical tensions, if this is even more precise. And I see a hand raised right here. Yeah. From in situ, yes.
Yes. Jacques Berlinger. If you take out current, then we have a problem with the dynamics with fresh look later on. So either we are describing some kind of process, or we're describing some overall situation. That is one point. And the other point is replying to the first speaker with a well put. The need for resilience favors a multi-stakeholder approach. That, in my view, already has in itself that there are alternatives. So it's not, as I read it, I admit that I haven't been present, but I'm therefore even having a fresher look on it. I deduct that there are different approaches, and the multi-stakeholder approach is one of them.
Thank you for this comment. That's why I made the first reaction at the beginning. That's the reason behind this precise wording, the fresh look, to suggest that it has to be revisited. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put it that way. My question was, if you all agree that it's too implicit, it has to be has to be made even clearer. Then we can do so according to the comments that have been raised by the other two participants. Yes, Lori.
Marco, so I don't know your name in the FabLab in person, but your point is well noted about it then changes the direction of the message in the following sentence. But maybe we don't need to say there is a need to resist this tendency. There's always been a need to resist the tendency of flatly opposing views when it comes to governance. So maybe, however we decide to resolve the current escalating geopolitical tensions may challenge multi-stakeholders. A fresh look approach may come from these voices. I guess what I'm saying is the need to resist the tendency to, I'm not sure what the tendency is the tendency that we let geopolitical tensions disrupt multi-stakeholderism, or is the tendency to politicize multi-stakeholder? I'm not sure what the tendency is that we're trying to resist.
What if, yeah, I see the ambiguity there. What if, and if others agree as well, we just leave out tendency and we say that there is a need to take a fresh look on the multi-stakeholder approach, or especially considering youth voices that are unrepresented, etc. Would that clarify it more?
For me, that would clarify it more. I think tendency, as I said, I didn't get it. And I thought by changing the previous, maybe I'd be helping, but I think maybe just taking it out is what's needed.
Okay, now I take the head of why I'm here. My name is Jacques Picklinger. I'm co-chair of the Swiss IGF, and I have been asked by here EuroDIG to just represent and make just bring some cohesion in the overall process of reporting. And just one remark: it is absolutely okay to have the messages that are current today and may not be for eternity. So this is the thing about the messages. So we are talking about developments as they are happening, and the messages may well reflect this. Just, it would be okay if you agree on it to have current political, so something like dynamic that next year may no longer be true in the messages.
All right, then, hi, I have a counter proposal to that. Then what I would say is, however, the current geopolitical tensions are challenging, if they in fact are. I mean, we know already there have been issues at ICANN with letters from different constituencies asking to remove whole names out of the root, right? We've already seen that happen. I know in my own organization, I've seen correspondence as well with one particular group from one arena is not comfortable being on a working group with another group from a particular arena. This is happening. This is happening. So maybe it's not maybe it is challenging multi-stakeholderism, and there is a need to resist this. And it's time to take a fresh look. Then it makes sense, if we think that's what's happening.
Okay, so is it fine then we leave current, but we make it more direct, as Lori was suggesting? Current geopolitical tensions are challenging multi-stakeholderism. And then the second part, there is the need to take a fresher look on the multi-stakeholder approach, especially looking at the youth voices, etc. Do we have rough consensus?
Yeah, I would agree to that. I would even say escalating, because they're still escalating.
Excellent.
I mean, they're escalating in trade war. I would say the current escalating.
Just to be even more confusion, you could say that the current geopolitical problems just add to the existing challenging.
We could also add that. Okay. I understand that there is rough consensus on this message. And as I mentioned also yesterday, and probably at the beginning of this discussion time, you will also have the possibility of comment further on the edited version of these messages after the conference is over. So I will send you the updated version, and you will still have the possibility to comment on it further through the EuroDIG platform. Shall we move to the second message, which is a bit more technical and longer than this one? I will read it out loud. After agreeing on global principles and values to guide AI development, such as trustworthiness, transparency, and human-centered AI, there is a need to let regions and countries adapt these principles to their own realities through concrete documents, for example, toolboxes, targeted at policymakers and other actors. In this process, cross-regional dialogue is needed to ensure harmonization. Potential risks related to AI need to be examined in a holistic manner, and humans need to be in command. There is a need for oversight by independent and certified AI auditors who could enhance trust and assist with compliance. Independent co-auditors could also help to balance the need to protect intellectual property while also enhancing transparency. They could assess the respect for the public interest without the need to disclose valuable business information more widely. So there is a lot of meat in this message. And I see, do I see a hand? Yeah, from FabLab? Yes.
Yes, this time, well, as a participant this morning, I can speak to the content. It looks for me a little bit too much meat on the bone. So changing head for messages, it should be shorter. Actually, it is not, it is too much. Switching head again, saying well to the content, it also looks a little bit like a commercial for certified and independent AI auditors, as if Ernst & Young and PwC had the pen. So I think we need to make sure it is not too much emphasis in a way that it looks like a business model.
Klaus has a few remarks.
I just would like fully support that thing, and I would even warn against mentioning independent auditors at all, because independent auditors applies a certain political structure. It applies a certain economical structure. It implies so much that there is you can say there is a proposal of independent auditors on the table, but you should not validate it or promote it or overstate it in any way. And that's what I think yes, he made a very good point and he sold his organization very well. And as a CEO, he should be congratulated. But in the context of the EuroDIG, this as a message is really fully not appropriate.
Lori has raised a hand.
Yeah, I would say these are actually two bullets. There's the first bullet and it stops after in command. And then there's a second bullet, which would go along Klaus's thought, if we even think it is appropriate for EuroDIG. I think we could have a second bullet. This is not one bullet. All right, that's my first point. And the second point is a proposed solution or a solution that was discussed is this, it needs more discussion or something like that for the second bullet. You know, it was proposed or it has been proposed that there is a need for independent oversight, period. Not certified AI auditors, for independent oversight. And perhaps independent auditors could help balance the need. I don't know why we're talking about balancing the need to protect IP while also, I mean, I love the statement. I'm an intellectual property attorney, but I feel like there's three thoughts here. This is what AI should be. It should be essentially harmonized to the extent it can be. We need somebody who knows what they're doing to oversee processes to make sure they're in compliance, whatever we decide compliance is. And, talk about opening AI to data, we need to seek solutions for intellectual property. Let's not share too much if we don't have to. But I see three completely different thoughts in this one sentence.
Absolutely.
And I think they can be three bullets if that's allowed. I just wouldn't put it as one.
I fully hear what you're saying, and after the first two comments, I was thinking along what you have expressed. The problem of these daily messages, last year was slightly simpler because each session had 3 messages, so they could be referred specifically to the topic that was discussed. This year with focus areas, you have to put a little bit together AI governance and other multi-stakeholderism and other issues. But to come back to the message itself, before I give the floor to Klaus, because I saw the hand waving, My main point would be, do we actually want, to echo what Laurie was saying, mention this independent oversight, one second, this independent oversight point? Because if that is the most controversial, and I understood what you've said, we could just finish this message at command. Knowing that we have 4 messages, we are the second one, we have other 2, which are really the maximum, because we should have 2 messages from each focus area, and it would not be possible to split them in bullet points.
And I would simply say, I think it's worthwhile discussing the oversight of independent and so on. The problem is these are EuroDIG messages. These are not reports or summaries of the meeting. And nobody ever talked about the oversight of independent oversight as a message of the EuroDIG. And that's why I really would go with your point, stopping it at command and making 2 bullet points out of the first 2 sentences.
Well, well, now standing again means the official part. Actually, we should have 1 bullet point. So this is what also was just said before. The new thing that we have this year is we want to really condensed messages. So if something is not clearly and needs to be discussed because it took much time, then it should be left out. And in particular, 1 short bullet point becomes suddenly more weight than a longer, because it is easily read. So this means just either have just the first part, or, well, bring everything into 1 sentence. And my advice would be to take out everything about the AI outages.
Yeah. I think if you thank you for doing that. You're helping me to be brave and saying that maybe the whole message in this process, cross-regional dialogue is needed to ensure harmonization, potential risk related to AI need to be examined in a holistic manner, and humans need to be in command. That is the message and no more.
Okay.
These 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Because, okay, it's nothing new, but it strengthens existing messages.
I perfectly understood. And so I will leave out all the part from command onwards. So that point will not even be mentioned. And I see that we have, again, rough consensus about this. Can we move then to the 3rd message? Which is, again, a bit long. This one is more specifically on digital identities. Digital identity solutions need to be measured not only by their usefulness and functionality, but more importantly, by how they respect and reflect the fundamental human rights and common responsibilities. Any digital identity solution needs to be technology agnostic, as that will ensure a greater likelihood of global interoperability and favor greater user adoption. In order to ensure a checked and balanced management of digital identity systems, different bodies and authorities need to be involved in overseeing the deployment of digital identity technologies. Moreover, there is the need to create platforms of dialogue among the different parties concerned, law enforcement authorities, regulators, and private sector, so as to facilitate compliance with existing regulations when resources are lacking. Again, this is a quite rich message, and in this one as well, we can distinguish maybe 2 parts. One on the deployment of these technologies, more on the compliance with human rights and oversight at the national level, and one that it's the end of the message that is touching more upon multi-stakeholderism. So you have national authorities which should also engage in discussion with private companies and regulators to help each other comply. Are there any strong reactions to this?
Yeah, I feel like this is 3 bullets again. Yeah, I would end it. I would end it. The first bullet ends at 1 after responsibilities. The second bullet ends at adoption. And I think the last one might stand on its own because they're talking about different bodies and authorities.
Okay,
That seems to be all the same, but again, it seems to be 3 messages again.
Mhm.
Am I allowed to shoot myself into the foot?
Yes. Yes, please go
Of
ahead.
course, I love the first sentence. That's my sentence. I preach that's now it's 2 years. But in accordance to Laurie, wouldn't it be possible to put the human rights and the technology agnostic into one sentence somehow? And that would help it. The middle part, in order to check, that's not so much important. But if you're looking for the message, that's the last sentence, and that should be the main point. I think somehow we can get that everything before the moreover. Yes. It should be mentioned, but it should be in a much shorter form or concise form. But the moreover thing should stay as it is, in my opinion.
So yeah.
And thank you for including human rights, fundamental human rights. Thank you.
Okay. Any reactions from FabLab? Yes.
Yes, I should just shortly for the process. Unfortunately, we cannot have several bullet points out of it. It must be one. One might also think whether the last sentence is, and this is totally contrary to what was just said, the last sentence striking out altogether, because this is more or less one buzzword, which is multilateralism. So what else would one expect from EuroDIG?
Yeah.
But it's either needs to be in at all costs or can be left out totally. Up to you to decide.
Which phrase? I'm sorry.
It's the last one. Moreover, there is a need to create platforms.
Yeah. If I can quickly
Yeah,
comment.
I don't. Yeah, I don't see
Go
that
ahead.
as super essential, believe it or not, because isn't there assumption that that is happening, or we don't assume that? I'm with you, Mr. whose name for whatever reason I keep forgetting. I think that presupposes multi-stakeholderism.
If I can quickly react on that, since we are reading all the messages of the same focus area, I want to remind you that also the first message that we discussed a few minutes ago was specifically on multi-stakeholderism. Again, it was not specifically on digital identities, but it was already conveying a message on multi-stakeholderism about this fresh look, etc. I know it's not exactly what it's touched upon here, but it may be also repetitive to have 2 messages about multi-stakeholderism.
Right, so we could strike the moreover. Because I think the first 2 thoughts are the most important. That it needs to be human rights centric and technology agnostic. I think this idea of interoperability is really key.
Okay,
I take that what I said before back. I think I see your point now.
No, the problem is that maybe there are too many messages coming out from each session. It's just to make them coherent, and actually as it was said before, we just should pick 1 or 2. So from what I'm understanding from all your comments, we can keep the first 2 sentences from the start, digital identity, until greater user adoption. So we have the human rights element, we have the technology agnostic element, and we just make it a little bit more coherent, be it in 1 sentence or just adjust slightly the wording, but it's more on the aesthetics than on the content. And the rest we leave out. Do we have a rough agreement on that?
Can I ask a question? Ensure greater likelihood of global interoperability. Do we really need the likelihood in there? If you just say it will ensure greater global yeah.
It's fine by me. Yeah. Okay, so we leave out likelihood as well. Perfect. Okay, then we can move to the last one, which is again even more technical because it's about delay tolerant networks. Here we are. Delay tolerant networks, DTNs, will help us expand networking in the interplanetary space for the benefit of the whole humanity. These networks will serve for human and robotic missions in the space and exploration of deep space. Its possible applications will include lunar communication, Mars internet working, and Earth observation missions. We would need to discuss rules and regulations around DTNs, network security policies, and governance models. We need to find a way to enable DTN evolution towards a large, open, and inclusive system, which would maintain flexibility and allow for innovation. We should not repeat the steps from the internet, but should look at the multi-stakeholder model as effective model. Okay, again, multi-stakeholderism, of course, is coming up again, and but as you can see, this message is specifically on DTNs and space. Yes.
Its possible application will include lunar communication. I think that whole sentence is superfluous.
Yeah.
And we would need to discuss rules around that we should discuss. The multi-stakeholder sentence should be out. Maybe, I know it sounds very, very simplistic, but maybe the whole message is just the first two sentences.
Yeah, this is FabLab. Yeah, Samu. So I would suggest the first thing that I would like to add is maybe to add the terrestrial, because you mentioned only space in this. So
okay.
I'm a little bit frightened that people don't understand DTNs.
Yeah.
Is there any very short way to explain what it is? It does.
Let's see how we use it for a session description, because I think we should maybe add bilateral networks, and then maybe if we talk about interplanetary internet, like bilateral networks as a building block of interplanetary internet.
Okay.
To be quite honest, and with all due respect, and I listen to you say, I know what you're talking about, but if people who don't know what you're speaking about, they're thinking, what did they drink in the last session? Yeah. We have to be a little bit more explaining to the normal audience what's going on here, because otherwise I think people just simply won't take it serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I was only in on the end of that session, and I'm actually now just looking it up myself because I don't know what it is. And I'm a fairly well-read internet policy person, but this is just not something I've ever encountered in the discussions that I've been part of, which I suspect will be a big part of the EuroDIG audience. So I think that makes sense. I think perhaps we do a very, very brief description with the permission of the organizer, and then make that one sentence saying, hey, this is what this is, it's important, and let's put this on the radar, pardon, but put it on the, put it on the agenda, that this should be part of the agenda.
Yeah, from the organizing side, I think we need to make sure that the EuroDIG is already something nerdy. But if we start just regulating the outer galaxy, then it is just losing a little bit credibility. So I'm fully with the idea that at least we should raise the flag and say, wait a minute, there are boundaries that we need to explore, and it's not just the internet, it goes beyond, and the details afterwards, they are probably just one bridge too far, too early. And so phrase it in a way that basically the message should be, there is more than just the internet, and we should start preparing. This should be the overall message. How it's phrased is a different thing. It can well have four lines or 5 lines, but not to give too much detail to how it should be done. Message should be that it should be done.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe if we would actually, start by, just to explain a bit more, if we say that the, expansion of internet into the space requires maybe new types of protocol, and in order to keep them open, we would need to have some sort of, we would use the multi-stakeholder model, because I think it is right now, I have to say, there is an issue with the governance, because, you have space agencies that are kind of more or less dominating, but there is a huge potential for terrestrial application. And I think that's why it's kind of, I as well wanted to bring it to the EuroDIG. So
I think absolute valid point.
Yeah.
So to maybe
Also, yeah. Also, it's very old technology, because I will demonstrate to you in the next 10 seconds how to do space and time travel.
Too funny. Yes, he's teleported.
Oh.
Give me a kiss.
that's
It just happens that we are husband and wife.
Okay.
But to come back to the serious point, I think the point you just said, I think as a message would be much more appropriate than what we have at the moment. Because what you wanted to do with the session was to sensitize people to the problematic, and what is there at the moment is again a little bit a report from the session, but not the message.
Yeah.
Right.
And okay, if I understood, and along the lines of what you just said, these comments are mainly about the second part of the message, which is about risk of regulations of these new technologies, the need for new protocols, and the possibility of using the multi-stakeholder model to keep this open. And this would be the second part of the message. The first part is a bit technical, and it aims at explaining what ETNs are, but it doesn't do it. So we have two options, or we have three options. The third one, which probably you're not in favor of it, we can also delete the message altogether, because we don't need 4 messages. We can just have 3 like we had yesterday. However, if this is a new topic and we want this to be flagged coming out of this EuroDIG, we should keep it. And I understand that this is the case. Therefore, we can have 2 options. The first part of the message we delete, and we insert a general sentence along the lines of what was said before, that there is more than just the internet. There are new applications and new technologies that go beyond the internet itself, that could be useful for terrestrial applications and also outer space. Something general around these lines. I know that I'm not using the correct wording, but I will do a little bit of research before adjusting this message. And then we reward the second part of the message along the lines of what was said, that the extension of the internet to the space requires new protocols, and in order to keep them open, we need something that is similar to multi-stakeholder model.
I would keep this as a multi-stakeholder model completely out of that.
This I understood. This I understood. Okay. Because but I feel like I was not in this session, but I know that the participant in C2 was at that session. So, and I also understand that out of that session, this was one of the main messages. The point is, do we want this as a general message coming out of EuroDIG, or just leave it as a session message? I understand Klaus is to leave that out. I'm asking other participants.
Well, maybe I think it wouldn't be bad for the whole EuroDIG to show that we are thinking also a little bit ahead, but not too much in details, then it becomes nerdy. So for me, lunar communication, Mars Internet Network, and the Earth observation is already way too complicated. And I think with this, well, we have rough consensus, we'll strike it out anyhow. At the same time, I'm not so against having multi-stakeholderism in it right now, because it is just but very shortly. So maybe even put it or in the first sentence or something like that, and that and the new rules will require a multi-stakeholder approach, full stop. And then we can get rid of almost everything of the second part.
Okay.
Cool. And we should hurry up.
Yeah, it's the last message. I took good note of what you just said, which I think sums up. It's a good compromise. among the comments that we've heard. So no objections from my side. I don't see any other objections, nor online or in situ. So we can hurry up and close it here. This was the last message. Anyways, I want to thank you again very much for your patience and assistance in co-drafting these messages, the final versions of them. As I was said, you will also have the chance to comment on that on the EuroDIG platform.
Great.
Okay, thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Marco.
Thank you. Enjoy the
Thank
evening.
you.
And bye-bye.
Thank you. And this concludes the sessions of today and concludes the end of the conference. I wish everyone who is still online a very good evening and hope to see you next year. Bye-bye.